Hello, everyone. Today we will learn about Lean Six Sigma fundamentals. This presentation is a total of 20 slides,
So it may get boring as we go along. But please resist the temptation when you feel like you don't want to listen anymore, because I need you to focus. Every aspect of this training is essential. So remember, I'm using the yellow belt model, which should have been taken for any regular takers for 16 hours or 2 full days. And this is all wrapped up into 1 hour. So this will be a very fast track training. I will need 100% of your undivided attention. So there will be a pop quiz right after the training, and all of your questions will be entertained right after my presentation. So please just write it down, and that's for our Q&A later on. In case we run out of time, your questions will be answered during a separate session. All right? So let me start with a brief history of Lean Six Sigma. Lean has its origins in Japan, while Six Sigma has its roots in the United States. This is from the 1980s. Lean started way back 1450, and the first person, however, who integrated the concept of Lean was Henry Ford. So meanwhile, the concept of Six Sigma was developed in 1987 by Motorola. So Bill Smith, who was an electric engineer of Motorola, he is considered to be the father of Lean Six Sigma. Sorry, Six Sigma, just Six Sigma. So Bill Smith is the father of Six Sigma. He approached Motorola CEO at that time and he proposed to reduce defects. And Six Sigma helped Motorola to be the first company to receive a National Quality Award in the year 1988. So the credit of inventing Six Sigma goes to Motorola. However, General Electric has made it famous. You know why? In General Electric, before, employee promotions were depending on whether the employee had a specific Six Sigma belt or not. Okay. So don't be overwhelmed with what you see on screen. It's not that overwhelming. You might see a lot of numbers and statistics. So I will just give you an information. Why is it called Six Sigma? Why not Three Sigma? Why not four or five or probably seven, right? Why six? So Six Sigma is derived from the bell curve. And that bell curve is typically used in statistics where one sigma represents one standard deviation away from the mean. So the defect rate in Six Sigma is said to be extremely low. Any errors are said to be extremely low when the process exhibits Six Sigma, where three deviations are above the mean and three are below the mean. So as you can see here on my very first illustration, here is a bell curve. This is how a bell curve looks. And the middle section is the mean or the average. And there is a positive sigma, which is six deviations to the right and then six deviations to the left. However, for Six Sigma, um, it's only within six standard deviations, which is acceptable. So the distribution shows variability. And in Six Sigma methodology, the goal or the target is to limit the defects up to six standard deviations only. So six standard deviations would be three deviations to the right of the mean and three deviations to the left of the mean. Six Sigma guarantees that if this is followed across all of the industries, then defects or any errors will be extremely low or non-existent. So this is the reason why it's not Four Sigma or Two Sigma. So on my next illustration here, it's not Two Sigma because for Two Sigma, it only says that we should be 68.26%. I mean, 68.26 out of the 100% population should be perfect or within the deviation. Um, in Four Sigma, it's 95, but when it's Six Sigma, it should be 99.73% within the standard deviation. So it's virtual perfection. All right. So let me just give you a quick example on how to compute standard deviation. So when you compute standard deviation, by the way, Six Sigma approach is focused on reducing variation in the process. So in this picture here, we're trying to reduce variations. And by designing a system where predictable results fall within the range of acceptable performance from a customer perspective, this is when the process errors are eliminated. So in this example, consider a pizza delivery shop that guarantees an order delivery within 30 minutes. So from the time of accepting the order. So in the event of a delivery miss, the customer is refunded 100%. So in this example, I'm showing you in one day in that particular company, ABC company, for example, there were 10 deliveries. Then the second column is a delivery in minutes. Okay, so the very first step on how to get the standard deviation is to get the mean. So mean is similar or synonymous to average. I just totaled everything and divided by 10. The mean is 34.9. The second step would be to get the individual differences. So the formula for that would be the performance minus mean. So 10 less 34.9, that's negative 24.9, and so on and so forth. So once you get all of the differences, you need to square them. That means negative 24.9 or 24.9 times 24.9 is 620.01. 10.1 times 10.1 is 102.01. You will need to sum up everything on this column, and then you will arrive at a number of 3,256.9, right? So in this total, the next step would be to divide it by the number of deliveries, which is 10. So 3,256.9 divided by 10, that's 325.69. That's not the last part yet. In order to get the deviation or standard deviation, you need to find the square root of answer in number 4. Sorry, um, disregard this because I'm trying to say I need to get the square root of 325.69. Square root of 325.69 is 18. What does it mean? In our example, wherein there were 10 deliveries, which among the 10 fell short of the standard? Can anyone tell me? Can you see my screen? Can you see up to the bottom of my screen? Which part can you see? Can you see this circled portion here?
Yeah, we can see it all. I think you
Okay.
just maybe
We can't
like
see the circle. We can't see the circle.
Oh,
where's the
let me
circle?
just,
Yeah.
can I
I
just,
just saw
can,
your 3 graphs.
okay, can I just minimize it for this page only? Because I can see it and I can. So there's a continuation for that. So
Oh, down at the bottom there.
yeah.
Okay.
So I can't see it. I don't know. Probably I need to. So anyway, we do have the 18, right? So our mean was 34.19. How to get the standard deviation? It has to be plus minus the mean. So 18 is the standard deviation. It has to be 34.9 plus minus 34.9 plus minus 18. This is the Six Sigma level of acceptable deviation. The delivery riders or the pizza riders will just need to deliver, they have to deliver within 16.9 minutes up to 52.9 minutes. That's the acceptable. Anything beyond that or below that is not acceptable. If they have people falling short of this deviation, then definitely they will not achieve Six Sigma. So in this example, if you can see, a lot did not meet the acceptable deviation. I colored it red. So number one is below it, below the standard deviation or acceptable deviation, 3 and 4 as well, 7 as well, and 9, right? So what is the percentage of the total number of deliveries which fell short of the acceptable standard deviation? That's 5 out of 10. It's a lot. It's not Six Sigma because when we speak of Six Sigma, it has to be 99.73%. So at least 10 out of 10 or probably 9. So if the sample population would be bigger, say for example there's a million delivery, then they're only allowed 99.73% of it. So that's how or that's why it's called Six Sigma. I will not compute or I will not discuss about that further because you won't be computing or you won't be doing the computation anyway during your project. But that is the reason why it's called Six Sigma. So there are a lot of benefits that Six Sigma provides us on an organizational perspective. It simplifies processes, and there are fewer errors and mistakes, and also we can get a predictable performance. So when we have predictable performance with less variation, process results become more predictable. So when we have predictable output, predictable costs, predictable cycle time, this can lead to fewer customer complaints and better customer service. So for personal benefits, there's a lot as well. I'm just citing here 3. Personal effectiveness, being able to find and fix problems will improve your ability to perform any position in any company, in any industry. Whatever position that you have, if you know Six Sigma, then you can fix problems effectively. And then leadership opportunity for everyone who's aspiring to become team leaders, supervisors, managers, process improvement managers. Leading a Six Sigma project will often provide you with opportunities for exposure to other functions and also to senior management, because you need to interact with managers, and it will likely improve your communication and decision making skills. So of course, being able to put it on your resume and also on your last name, because I mean suffix of your last name, that you are a certified Six Sigma who has led a project management team will achieve you um, possible promotion on your next career opportunity. So, last but not the least would be pay and promotability. Attaining the belt certification is a valuable credential on your resume. So, many job postings require that an applicant have a Lean Six Sigma credential. In fact, in Cebu nowadays, I've seen a lot of companies asking that they should have someone who's certified for their team leader roles or supervisor roles, and it comes with somewhat a premium pay, especially if you're in process improvement department. So who benefits from using like Lean Six Sigma? Anyone. So every other industry, I mean, every industry out there benefits it. It could be healthcare, technology, government, retail, accounting, finance, hospitality, customer service, HRIT, sales, and even operations. So these are just some of the companies who have successfully adopted Six Sigma strategies. They include Johnson& and Johnson, Honeywell, Kodak, Ford, Black& Decker, Caterpillar, Sony, ServiceMaster, and Allied Signal, and many more. Okay, so Six Sigma certification structure. There are 4 major belts in Six Sigma, but actually below the yellow belt, there's still white. White is just knowing the fundamentals, and it's not widely you can just get it online, I think. You don't have to pay for it. So for yellow belt, it's more of awareness of the Six Sigma principles. Once you get the yellow belt, you can work under the guidance of green belts. And yellow belt is around 2 to 3 days of certification. And there's also a certification exam right after the course. You will also be asked to present or create a project and present it in class. So green belt, they usually are the people which who are managing teams. Like the takers of green belts are supervisors, team leaders, operations managers, and all of the managers within the organization. So once you have the green belt, you can lead projects within the team. The green belt runs for around 10 days up to 15 days certification course. Just like yellow belt, it comes with a training. I mean, it comes with an exam, and you need to present your own project, successful project with a hard and soft savings. So black belt is someone above the green belt, and they can lead cross-functional projects involving 2 or more related departments. So they are the trainers and coaches for green and yellow belts. And lastly, the master black belts are the senior individuals managing the Lean Six Sigma initiative within the organization. So these are 5 of the project types for Six Sigma, but typically for service industries like ours, we are usually doing the process improvement, the pink one here, and also the quick wins. So you might not be familiar with quick wins. It's more of the problem is contained in one department, the root cause is known, and the fix is painless. We also call that just do it. Okay. So I have a question for you. Who is the father of Six Sigma? Lilette? Remember I told you I will ask random questions, right? But can you please answer me? Or Lilette, do you know who's the father of Six Sigma? All right. You can say pass if you don't know. It's fine.
It's Bill Smith, miss.
It's Bill
Oh.
Smith.
Who was that? Giselle?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
I
Bill
was
Smith.
muted.
It's fine, but good job because you were able to remember it, even if it was not written. So yeah, we are now in the lean methodology. Again, I mentioned to you that lean is a methodology which aims to minimize waste, right? So let me just discuss you the 3 types of activities within the organization. There are 3 types of activities. The very first one would be the value added activities, or anything that the customer is willing to pay for. Just to let you know, ladies, our customers are our internal customers. So when I talk about customers, we're dealing with internal customers who are recruiters, branches, our bosses, the talents. So they are what we call customers. All right. So value added activities. An example for a value added activity would be, of course, payroll, or sending out onboarding documents to talents. Those are value added activities. And what are we going to do with them? We need to optimize them. So in this pie chart here, it's the green part, value added activity. We have to optimize the value adding activities or added activities. So there's also what we call necessary non-value added activities. These activities are essential, but they're not value adding. They have to be done. Okay, so activities which must be done, but they do not necessarily add value for either internal or external customers. Do you have any idea what's a non-value adding activity for our team? Can anyone tell me at this point? Okay, a very good example for a non-value adding activity, which is essential and something that we cannot eliminate, are our audits. All right, so our audits, the recruiters cannot benefit from our audits. The talents cannot benefit from our audits, but they are essential, because without the audits, we will not be able to detect the errors. So we have to make sure that it stays in place. We cannot eliminate them. They're necessary. We just have to minimize them. So the third type of activity is waste. Waste is anyone, it could be a person or anything that does not add value. So who determines whether it's the person or that thing add value? It is our customers who determines that. So based on Six Sigma, it has to be the customers who will determine who or what adds value to the process. So we are done with the 3 types of activities. I know that I shared with you a video with 8 types of, so I have done study or self-study for this. There are 8 types of waste, and the example or the acronym to remember is Tim Woods. Transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overprocessing, overproduction, defects, and skills. So try to understand each of the ways, and I might be asking you later on to apply it to our internal processes and what you can consider as waste, okay? So for transportation, it means moving items or information. An example would be moving an equipment from one construction site to another, or probably ordering parts or supplies from distant suppliers when closer options are available. So inventory, in the meantime, these are items or information that the customer has not received. For process improvement projects, examples of waste would be unread emails, unused records in the database, or probably unused office supplies, and also desktop applications that you never use and it's just sitting there. Motion, in the meantime, it would be excessive movement within the workspace. Now, ladies, you might be wondering, or you might have a question later on, what's the difference between motion and transportation, because it sounds like the same. Just to let you know, transportation deals with movement of items or information, while motion deals with people. It's the movement of people within the workspace. So example of motion would be, say for example, we have a new software. To do 10 clicks to get the screen to get to the screen that you want. That's a waste. Another example of a waste for motion would be printers or office equipment that are not conveniently located. So if you are in the 2nd floor and you need to go upstairs at the 3rd floor to print, then that's a waste as well. So waiting, that's the 4th type. Waiting is waiting for information or items to arrive. Example would be people waiting for information in order to complete their tasks, or probably system downtime that allows you to, that delays your tasks. That's a waste. Or maybe waiting for an approval. That is a waste, but this waste is tricky because I'm going to give you an example for Spectra side, like waiting for a client approval. It is a waste because you're waiting for it, but you cannot necessarily remove that part of the process. So you have to do something, right? So that's waiting. Over processing, it means doing more work than necessary. Examples would be software features that no one ever uses and you're paying for it. So in the hospital setting, it could be an MRI with wherein an X-ray is just sufficient. So you don't have to pay for the MRI. Or complex processing purchasing processes requiring multiple approvals. The next one would be overproduction. It means doing work before it is needed. So examples would be overstaffing or probably too many meetings or maybe wrong people in the meetings. And for hospital setting, it could be hospitals with more beds than what the community needs. Okay, so defects. Defects are information which are not communicated effectively or well understood. Okay, so sorry, that was an example. So the defects would be and errors that needs to be reworked. An example for that would be information that is not communicated effectively or well understood, or probably product shipped to the wrong address, and manufactured items that do not meet customer expectations. Lastly, it's the skills. So skills means not using workers to the fullest of their abilities. So examples would be continually using a high-skilled person on a low-skilled work, or maybe leaders doing clerical tasks instead of doing the higher level tasks, and employees who do not have the opportunity to use their special skills. Okay, do you understand the types of waste? I have a question. Can you give me one type of waste? And can you give me an example within back office team? Something that you considered a waste. I would say I will call um, Mars.
Yes, Miss.
So can you give me an example of a waste that you see within the team?
Um, Defect.
Okay, good. And
For
examples?
an example would be a missing information. So if you will be sending an email to customers and then you miss one thing, you miss to inform the customer that she needs to submit this and that.
Okay, that's actually very good. So that's actually very good. So thank you for that, Mars. I also have one example for that. So remember, we're sending out money network cards to our talents. So if and also we're using direct deposit, right? So if venture incorrectly credits a pay to an incorrect talent, that's a waste, right? It's also one of the wastes. Okay. So we are done with the lean principle. We are in the um, Six Sigma methodology. So earlier, I think that was last week, I discussed a bit about classical approach, which is a firefighting approach. In this slide, I'm just showing you the side by side firefighting and Lean Six Sigma. Where in the firefighting approach, we identify the problem, we contain them immediately by doing band-aid solutions. Of course, the problem is fixed, and only to realize that the problem recurs again elsewhere or sometime in the future. That's something that we don't really want all the time if we can do it, but we just want to, if possible, we would want to adopt the DMAKE methodology or the Lean Six Sigma methodology, which is define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So in the define, you define the problem. In the measure, you quantify the problem. This is when you will present the current processes. So if you are doing process improvement projects under measure phase, what you can do is you can just gather whatever information that we have, whether there's a waste in the process or not, then you have to present it in the measure phase. For analyze phase, this is where you identify the root causes. So you can make use of tools such as Ishikawa diagram, fishbone diagram, five whys analysis, Pareto principle. There are a lot of tools. So in the Real Six Sigma certification, you will be discuss all the tools. But for this presentation, I will show you two tools, which is the Ishikawa or fishbone diagram and the five whys analysis. Okay, so for the improve phase, it will be this phase wherein you implement, you think of the solutions, you prioritize the solutions, and you verify if the solution is realistic and acceptable. And of course, control phase, you maintain the solution. Okay, so before we start with the define phase, I feel that these are very important information that you need to know for your process improvement project. So at this point in time, most of you might already have your process improvement projects in mind, but for some of you who don't have it yet, these are some of the project sources when you do Six Sigma. So first project source would be the business strategy or long-term plan. This doesn't really apply to most of us. Usually the people who's doing this project would be the top management because of course they have the upper hand, they know all of the data and they know where the business is going to and also the long-term plans of the business. So but this is a valid project source. The second type of project source would be the voice of the customer. You know, this is very applicable to me, to you, and to everyone. We already know who our customers are, right? They are the internal customers, the recruiters, the branches. So what is voice of the customer? So when you hear a feedback coming from the branches saying you are not doing your job correctly, that is the voice of the customer. So anything, any feedback from our customers or probably from the talents, any feedback that you hear that probably might have a problem attached to it, that is a project source, which I will discuss later on how you can translate it. Okay, so that's the voice of the customers. The third project source would be key performance indicators or metrics. Typically, the ones doing this are managers and upper management team because this entails employee performance management. All right. So process gaps. This is very much applicable to all of us. In fact, this is your project for your quarter 4, process gaps. So you can do this. Anyone can do this in the organization. So hard and soft project savings. What is hard and soft project savings? The reason why I'm highlighting hard and soft project savings, because at the end of your project, you will need to evaluate whether your project there's a benefit to the project and what are those. So you need to identify them. Like at the end of your project, what did the organization benefit from it? Is it a hard savings or is it a soft savings? So hard savings are anything tangible or measurable in dollars, anything that can be measured by money. Soft savings in the meantime are intangible benefits, something which cannot be measured. So common examples of hard savings would be reduction in overhead cost, reduction in cost of operations, or probably reduction in manpower. So soft savings, common example would be reduction of compliance issues or increased safety, increased employee satisfaction, right? Or probably increased customer satisfaction. Okay, so question, what are the intangible benefits again? Or the savings, what is it called? Intangible savings. I'm going to call Christine. What do you call what is that term when we speak of tangible benefits? Do you know that, Christine?
Pass, Miss.
Okay. I'm going to call Krisha.
Soft savings.
Okay. That's a good guess, but it was hard savings, Krish. Look, hard savings are tangible or something that can be measured. Okay. So, all right. So we are now in the define phase. This is the very first phase of Six Sigma methodology. And just to set your expectations again, ladies, when you do your project, you will do the DMake phases. All right. So you will do define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. There are there are three steps for define phase. So the very first step is to translate voice of the customer to CTQ. Okay, so we talked about what the voice of the customer is. It's the feedback from the recruiters, from the branches. When someone will tell you from your branch, you are not doing your job correctly. Okay, that's a valid voice of the customer, but you cannot put that in a problem. You know why? Because it's not measurable. Um, Actually, this applies to everything, not just for Six Sigma. It's a life lesson. When someone tells not doing your job or when someone tells you that you're not doing your role or probably in your families, you cannot just think of it that way. you have every right to politely ask, excuse me, may I know in what way am I falling short of your expectations? Excuse me, can you provide me some details? Past experiences, can you provide me the specific date or the time or the instance as to how or when I was not performing correctly? So you have to ask that. You cannot just accept that you're not doing your job correctly. You have to deep dive. So that's what the first step in how to translate VOC to CTQ, because means critical customer requirement. It has to be measurable. So again, when someone will tell you you're not doing your job, it's not working, you can politely ask some details like the instances. And then the second part of translating voice of the customer to CTQ is to also know what you are expected. So what are my metrics? What are my goals? I mean, um, what is expected of me? How many off cycles should I be doing? Um, how much of a scorecard should I be getting every month or every week? Okay, so all right, so since we have already started with the phase, just to let you know, guys or ladies, my slides, if you notice here, this is a black colored slide, right? But I purposely did that because towards the after this slide, if you see here, it's a white slide, right? So just to let you know, for black slides, those are theories. All right, those are theories or discussions. When you see a white slide, it's my project, the actual project that I made. So this is an example which you can make use when you do your fourth quarter projects. Okay, so black slides are discussions, white slides are my project. Okay, so since we are already in this part, voice of the customer, this is the start of my project. I'm going to share with you what I did. This was my winning Six Sigma project. When I did the certification, because it was impromptu, I had to complete it in one day. I was already with Spectra that time. So because it was a yellow belt, and in yellow belts it's not really required for a sign off, meaning we are allowed to mask information, we are allowed to put dummy information for the company. So that's exactly what I did, because I don't have a sign off, so my sponsor will have to sign off. But Nick did not knew that I took my Six Sigma that time. So I masked everything up, including the data, the names, and the team members and all of that. But this is what I presented, and this gave me the valedictorian title. So probably Spectra was my lucky charm that time. But yeah, so again, okay, I'll start with my voice of the customer. Um, my voice of the customer was I listened to the management team. So my voice of the customer was Spectra 360 management is not satisfied with the performance of payroll team. So that's the voice of the customer. That's the voice of our bosses. Critical customer requirement. This is how I translated it. So the payroll completion rate of the payroll team should be at least 98.5% or less than 5 off cycles per week. That's my voice of the customer. Okay, so the second part would be developing project charter. These are the parts of the project charter. A project charter is a living document outlining the issues, targets, and framework of a process improvement effort. So in the project charter, you have to indicate your problem statement, which should be based on your CTQ. So your business case would be a little about the company and your purpose, why you created the project or why you are in that project. Goal statement would be the target. So in the goal statement, you have to learn how to create a SMART goal, because when you submit your projects, um, it's gonna be a wrong goal statement. If you will provide us a statement which is not SMART, then that's gonna be wrong. What is SMART? Anyone knows what SMART goal is? For those of you who's not familiar with SMART, it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So I'll show you later on an example of a SMART goal. So timeline on this part, you need to each of the project phase will have to be indicated there, like the timeline as to how you can complete each of the project phase. Scope would be whatever is involved in your project, you have to indicate it there, and whatever is not involved has to be indicated as well. And of course, the team members. This is my project. Can anyone please read problem statement? Let me see. Can you please read Geraldine problem statement?
Problem statement. For the first 3 weeks of February 2020, payroll completion rate was an average of 97% with 7 to 9 off cycles per week. This is an unsatisfactory performance based on the target of 98.5% or less than 5 off cycles per week. This problem became a threat because Spectrum management might dissolve the payroll team and bring the payroll operations back to the US if the payroll completion target KPI is not met.
Okay. So just list down your questions, okay? Because at this point you might already have questions for me, so that in order to not to waste time. So the problem statement is based on my CTQ. Um, for the problem statement, you have to be very thorough. You have to indicate there what exactly is the problem and what's the impact of the problem. Okay. So for the business case, can you please read, Lizelle?
Spectra 360 is one of the fastest growing talent management agencies in the United States. Over a year ago, the company acquired Raso Solutions, a KPO BPO in Cebu with several clients within and outside US. Spectra Management formed a team in Cebu to handle talent payroll. The payroll team was unable to meet the payroll completion rate IPCR for the month of February 2020, resulting in dissatisfaction of Spectrum Management team. If this problem continues, Spectrum Management may either dissolve the team in Cebu or replace the current payroll specialist. This there is an opportunity to meet the expectation and satisfy Spectrum Management to retain the payroll team in Cebu.
Okay, thank you for that. So business case would be just giving an information about the company, and of course, don't forget the purpose why you're doing the project. So my purpose would be to fix PCR in order to satisfy and in order to solve the problem about our performance in terms of payroll completion rate or the number of off cycles per week. So goal statement. Can you please read, Irish?
Goal statement: to improve the payroll completion rate of the payroll team from 97% for the first 3 weeks of February 2020 to 98.5%, at most 5 off cycles per week by May 1, 2020.
Okay, so this is the time wherein you need to compose a SMART goal. You will need a lot of, for those of you who have not created a SMART goal yet, you might need some practice, but it's actually very doable. SMART goal means specific. Again, it's SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So when you create your projects, it has to be with a goal statement which is SMART. Okay, so can you please see and tell me if my goal is SMART or not? Lizelle, do you think my goal is SMART?
I'm so sorry, I'm mute. Yes, Miss.
Okay, thank you, Liz. So my goal is SMART because let's dig it. I mean, let's dig further. My goal is SMART because it is specific. I indicated numbers here like 97% to 98.5. It is also measurable because we do have a means of measuring it. We all have the data. And because the numbers are here, then it's definitely measurable. Is it attainable? Definitely, because we've already been doing that. In fact, we have exceeded 98.5. So it is attainable. Is it realistic? Yes, it is realistic because it's attainable. And is it time bound? Yes, because I indicated here the date as to when I will be fulfilling the goal, which is May 1, 2020. Okay. So project scope. This is the part where you just have to indicate whatever is involved in the process or whatever is not involved. So for our in scope, it's gonna be payroll team and all of the payroll processes used by the team. Out scope would be any other processes not involving payroll. So team members, in the real project world, for Six Sigma, my project sponsor, because I'm doing the project and my boss is the VP of finance, so he should be the sign off or the project sponsor. The project lead would be me, and the team members would be the payroll specialists. project milestone, this is very straightforward. You just have to indicate the phases of the DMake and the target dates, and also the actual dates as to when you did each of the phases. Okay, so this one, going back to the 3 steps, the third part of the defined phase is the high level process SIPOC. I'm not going to discuss this because I think we will not be requiring you to prepare the SIPOC, but for purposes of information in the real project, you will need to create this. SIPOC is simply a diagram showing who the suppliers are, what the inputs are, what is the process, what the outputs are, and who the customers are. So we know what a customer is. We already have the process. We have the output for this project, of course, is the talent's weekly pay. Inputs would be any raw materials needed, like the Bullhorn software, QuickBooks, timesheets, time card approvals. And the suppliers are those who provide the information. So it's us, the talents, the client approvers. Okay, so we are in the second phase, which is the measure phase. This is a part, okay, there are 4 steps of the measure phase. And on this measure phase, what you just need to do, since you are doing the process improvement project, any process that we already have, that's your presentation for measure phase. So say for example, you're trying to eliminate some waste in the process, or you're trying to enhance the direct deposit money network card setup process, just like what I snipped here. So for the measure phase, you just need to snip our process. You know where to find our current process flows, right? We have several of them. It's in the dashboard and it's in our SOPs. You just need to snip it. And if there is a waste in the current process, then you need to highlight in red or in circle. It could be that there's no waste. You just need to modify it. It's still applicable. But for measure phase, you just have to present the current data. So for those of you who have not created process map, which you notice I've already been doing that. So just to give you some information as to how to do it, it's a bit of refresher from college. These are the common process map symbols that you use: rectangle, diamond. You can study this later on. You can also ask me if you have further questions. Some important things for this would be, of course, if it's an activity, it's a rectangle. If it's a decision point, it's a diamond. Okay? And then the start and end of the process. Also circle for continuation of the flowchart to another page. So that was the discussion part. This is my measure phase for my project. So in my measure phase, I listed down the actual performance of payroll team from February 8 up to February 29. So if you can see here, we've had 9 off cycles for week ending February 8. By the way, the number here, I already trimmed it down. So these off cycles are really the actual off cycles, wherein those reasons like the client did not approve the hours, or no response from the client. So these are the actual. I did not include here. There's still more actually. February 8, we had, I think, 15, because the other off cycles were like talent's assignment ended, but I did not include that. So these are the very what do you call that? The very actual off cycles wherein we were not able to complete during payroll on a Tuesday. So the payroll completion rate for February is at an average of 97.78%. That's the baseline. So for your measure phase on the project, you can also include a graph similar to the one that I prepared here. That is just if your project is not process improvement, if it's something like metrics similar to the one that I have. Okay, so all right, so we are in the analyze phase. In the analyze phase, there are 3 steps. Number 1, you need to identify potential causes, and then you need to prioritize the causes and then validate. So in the analyze phase, there are several tools that you can use, but I'm going to give you the commonly used tools for Six Sigma. That's the Ishikawa diagram, or it's Ishikawa diagram because it came from Japan. This also is synonymous to fishbone diagram, or we call that cause and effect diagram. This is how it looks. There's also the 5 whys analysis. So during your project, you can use either or. if depending on what's applicable to the problem. You can use the fishbone diagram or you can also use the 5 whys analysis. All right. So for the fishbone diagram, you need to follow the 6 M's as your guide. It's called fishbone because it looks like a fish and the problem is in the head. And then you just use for the root causes, use the 6 M's for your guide. If you're looking for the causes, it could be manpower, methodology, machine, material, measurement. I will have an example for this later on. So I'll discuss 5 whys because I did not use 5 whys in my project, just for your information in case you will be using 5 whys. So what is 5 whys? It's a diagram showing, or what you need to do for 5 whys is you just need to ask yourself, keep asking yourself why. It may not be 5 whys. It can be probably 6 whys or 4 whys, but the standard is 5. In order, and then you stop. You stop and at the time that you already have the root cause. So say for example this one here. Althea's grades went down. You ask yourself why? Because she failed in most of her quizzes. Why? She cannot focus in class lectures. Why? She's consistently sleepy and tired. Why? She sleeps so late every night. Why? Because she spends hours in her smartphone. If you see here, there's a check mark. It means that she was able to arrive at the very root cause of the problem. So that is how you do the 5 whys. Okay. Question. Can you give me one example of a tool that you can use for analyze space? I'm going to ask, who was that person that I was not able to call? Maybe Irish. Can you give me a tool that you can use for analyze space? One example.
Is it the Ishikawa, Miss?
Okay. Yes, that's correct. And that's what we're looking at on the screen
Or
right
the-
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fishbowl.
Yes, so Ishikawa, it is synonymous to fishbone diagram. So this is my actual project. If you see here the problem, I listed it in the head of the fish. The problem is unsatisfactory PCR or payroll completion rate performance. Look at take a look at my potential causes. So in this part here, if it's a group activity, you need to brainstorm. But since it was an individual project, then these are the potential causes that I feel and think cause the problem. Number one, for machines, it could be possibly be because the payroll specialists have slow computer units. That's for machines. These are not verified causes, okay? So it's just my feeling, or like that's what I think, because we're still in the analyze phase. So machines, it could be slow computer units used by payroll specialists. For manpower, it could be probably the skill set of the payroll specialist, or maybe the demotivation factor of the payroll specialists. For methods and processes, it could be unclear payroll guidelines or insufficient training. Or probably for measurement part, it could be because there were no KPIs, there were no scorecards set. Expectations were not set initially. For mother nature or work environment, you can just put there not applicable if it's not applicable, or if you don't have anything there. And then for materials and information, it could be because we have outdated SOP documents, so they don't have something that they can use. Okay, so that's my fishbone diagram. Now we are in the improve phase. Okay, so the improve phase has 4 parts. You need to identify the solution, prioritize, and implement, and also evaluate. All right, so for the improve phase, this is where you will need to brainstorm again if you are in a group. You will need to list down all of the proposed solutions that you have. So when you do a project, you cannot just raise the problem, you have to fix it. You have to complete everything. So you need, first step would be to list down all of your proposed solutions. But take note, ladies, when you create your proposed solutions, you have to go back to your fishbone or your 5 whys. Why? Because your solution should be able to address everything here. Okay, so your solutions, just limit it up to 3 or 4 or 5. Don't make a lot of solutions. It will get really complicated. So things that you need to remember, focus on the solution of your problem. Whenever you create anything on the project, make sure you go back to your problem. What is your problem? Do not make extra solutions. Okay? Do not drift away. Do not make your problem is the PCR performance. Just focus on that. You only have one problem to work on. So lastly, there's also one thing that you need to remember. The most expensive fix is not always the best fix. Okay, so you can read between the lines. So anyway, these are my proposed solutions. I listed it down. That's the first step. And then after listing your proposals, okay, proposed solutions. My proposed solutions are performance management or creating KPIs and weekly scorecard. Let me just review that. The scorecards that I will create, it will address the skill set. Sorry, it will address this one. It will address the measurement, right? It will address measurement and probably also the demotivation aspect because employees will be empowered if they have scorecards. So the second proposed solution that I have was to conduct at least 2 team huddles or meetings weekly to share best practices. This, I think, will address the skill sets because, of course, we get to share best practices. This will also address unclear guidelines because we have to discuss whatever guidelines which are not clear and we can clear them out. And eventually we can update SOP documents. So it addresses a lot of things. The third one is replacing old computer units. This will address slow computer units. And then number 4, rewards and recognition. This will address demotivation. Okay, so that's how you create your solutions. You cannot create solutions which is far out from your fishbone. So once you already have your solutions, what you need to do is to rate each one of them. So there are we call that prioritizing solutions. There are 2 types of how you can prioritize solutions. The first one is voting method. So when you have team members in the group, you can vote based on team knowledge, but this is very subjective, so this is not recommendable. Well, it has been used, but for the purpose of this project, which is we're focusing on the most objective solutions, we will be using prioritization matrix. Okay, so this is very prioritization matrix is objective. This is the example of the prioritization matrix. So I am rating each of my solutions based on what I think, based on value. Is it valuable? Is it expensive? So I rate it 1 if it's not valuable, a 10 if it's valuable. Is it impactful? Does it have an impact to the organization or to the team? So that's a 10, right? So I rate it as 1 if it's not expensive or it doesn't entail a lot of cost. If it's expensive, I rated it as 10. So these are my ratings. If you can see here, most of my solutions, I find it all valuable, but the only difference is that I feel that the replacing old computer units is quite costly and it will need approval from management. So I rated it as a high cost. And everything else entails cost, but it's not really that big. So once you have this one, you need to plot them to your solution matrix. This is the solution matrix, the colored one here. Okay, so take note, anything with high value and high cost, sorry, let me start with high value, low cost. Anything which has high value and low cost, definitely go for it. Implement the solution. Anything with low cost and low value, it might be worth it. It's so maybe you can just put that on parking lot for now. Anything with low value and low cost, anything with high cost and low value, definitely a no. If it's expensive and you feel it's not really that valuable, then drop it. Okay, so if it's high cost and high value, you should, there are also things which entails high cost but it's valuable, then you have to carefully consider it. It's worth the try maybe, or it's worth a considerable study. Okay, so this is my project. My proposed solutions, I rated it and I plotted it, and it turns out that my solution letter A, B, and D is worth trying, is worth implementing. So I am implementing A, B, and D, and I'm putting solution C on parking lot, the replacement of all units. This is as of May, by the way, early this year. So remember, my project was early this year. So replacing old computer units, put that on parking lot because it entails cost, but it's valuable. So it's worth considering. Okay, so the next part would be implementing solution. This is still in the improve phase, okay? So you have to implement the solution. So remember I told you I will implement solutions out of 4. So I create the action plan. I listed all the solutions down. Who takes charge of the solutions? It's me, the start date and the finish date. You need to have the start date and the finish date. Why? Because after the finish date, you need to evaluate the results and in order to control that as well later on. So after May 31, these are the results. These are the actual results. If you can see here, February 8 to 29, we were at 97.78%. Come March, up to May and even up to current, we are already at 99%. So you can also add graphs on your improve phase project. So similar to the one that I have here. Okay, we are at the last part, finally. All right. So let me see if I have a question here. Okay, I have a question. When the I'll call first. Krisha. I already called Krisha. Did I call everyone? Can you tell me,
I think
Lilette?
you call Christine next.
Christine, Chris, when the solution is low cost, listen, Chris, if the solution is low cost and high value, then it means that the solution is a go. You will implement that. Is it true or false? If it's low cost, high value, is it a go, Christine, or a no, or a drop? True or false? Sorry, let me clear that. When the solution is low cost, high value, then the solution should be proceeded. True or false, Christine?
True.
Very good. Very good, Chris. So we are in the last part finally. So the last part is a control phase. There are two steps in the control phase, which is to standardize and sustain performance. And lastly, you have to close the project. So the control phase is when the solutions or the improved processes are standardized. The project leader or the team conducts training and sustains the improvement. So there are two things that you need to prepare for control phase. The control plan, which is somewhat of this, similar to this one, a written summary describing the systems and what is used for monitoring. Something that I would like to highlight here is the response plan. Okay, so response plan means what are you going to do if the current performance is still not meeting the target despite of implementing the solutions that you already have. This is the control part. You need to do this, right? So you have to think of a response plan. If all of my three solutions will not yield a good result, I should have my plan B. So that's the response plan, which I will discuss later on for my project, which is my last slide. So standardization plan, this is where you update your SOPs, policies, training manuals, work instructions, and all other documents. This is my project. I indicated here that I'm studying the team metric, which is PCR. The monitoring instrument is a scorecard, of course. The frequency of review is monthly. I own it. The responsibility is under me. Target would be 98.5%, and this is my response plan. I know I haven't discussed this further, but my response plan is PIP or Performance Improvement Plan for those payroll specialists who fall below the target. So this is another discussion to make, but that's my response plan. Standardization plan. I'm going to roll out the individual payroll specialist scorecard, which we have already done, and also the payroll team PCR scorecard, which we already have during our town halls. Project benefits. This is the one that I was talking about. You have to identify your soft savings or hard savings. I'm identifying here, I have 4 soft savings for my project. Number one, it improved the PCR performance from 97% to 99%. Actually, we did not just hit the target, we exceeded it. So we also boosted the morale of the payroll specialists and Spectra top management satisfaction and also customer satisfaction because branch recruiters are happy with fewer off cycles. That ends my presentation. Okay, I think we don't have the time anymore. Next, so are we going to do the question and answer today?
I mean, honestly, I would just say big congrats to you, Lou. Thank you for spending this time and doing such a good presentation. There's a lot of information here. So what I would suggest actually is the team, make sure you try to think about what we went through today. Write down your questions and let's submit them to Lou so that on our next session, we can start with any questions that you guys submit. Lou, maybe we can send a form out so everyone can just correlate it that way and everyone can put their questions in. Well done to everybody who answered questions.
Yeah.
I think you guys did a good job. Lou, great work on the presentation. Lots of awesome information here. And just everyone, don't worry if you feel overwhelmed. There was a lot came at you in an hour.
Yeah.
We're not expecting you to be masters, but I think what hopefully will happen is the idea is even if you only take away one item today, hopefully that one item will help you, as we go towards working out a new process improvement for our team. Everyone here is so capable and can do this without a problem. So I think, taking the skills and knowledge that we have from Lou is such a great resource for us. So if you're in a project and you have an idea, you should reach out to Lou as well and get her input. 5 Whys is such a good resource. I do it all the time. Like Lou said with the example, you don't just want to fix the problem one level down. You want to go, where is the root cause? And like, an example of why my child's grades are falling, it took you a number of whys to get to the real reason. It's because she's not sleeping and she's not focusing because she's on her phone. So, an easy solution is, all phones are taken away at a certain time at night or something. There's ways that you could find a solution to that, but if you don't go through the processes to find where that root cause is, you won't solve the real reason for why the grades are falling. So great work, Lou. Team,
Thank
really
you.
excited for everyone. We will have another session set up. Lou will send out a form for everyone to ask questions from today. Make sure you try to fill that out before you clock off for the weekend, so that it's fresh in your mind. And we will have another session. And Lou, thanks again. Great work.